Welcome, Vintage Mike Tales family. I want to take a moment to say thank you, from the bottom of my heart, to every one of you who listens, supports and shares these stories. You make this journey possible, and I see you, I appreciate you, and I am so grateful for you. Let's dive into tonight's story. Miami always had a way of pretending everything was beautiful. Even on the hardest days, the city glowed like nothing bad could ever happen here. But that afternoon, as Catherine raced up the steps of Mercy Memorial Hospital, beauty was the last thing she felt. Her breaths came sharp. Her palms were damp. Her stomach twisted with fear. Her mother had collapsed at home an hour ago. And Catherine had sprinted out of work without thinking twice. By the time she reached the emergency room, her heart felt like it was lodged in her throat. "Are you family?" a nurse asked. "She's my mother," Catherine breathed out. The nurse nodded. "She's being prepped for surgery. The doctor will be with you soon. Surgery." The word hit her like a punch. She sank into a seat, fingers trembling against her knees. Her phone buzzed. Her abusive boyfriend, of course, but she silenced it instantly. She couldn't deal with him now. She couldn't deal with anything except the possibility of losing her mother. When the doctor finally emerged an hour later, his expression was kind but firm. "She needs immediate surgery." Without it, he shook his head softly. Catherine swallowed hard. How much? 70,000. Her body went numb. She didn't have that. Not even close. Not with bills, rent, and the constant weight of survival pressing on her chest every month. Her mind moved fast. Her job, her boss. The Bradford Corporation wasn't just wealthy. It was empire-level wealthy. Don Bradford, her CEO, could gather $70,000 out of his pocket change. But asking him her boss? Her pride screamed no. Her mother's life screamed yes. She chose her mother. By the time she reached Bradford Tower, tall glass, intimidating, her legs felt like water. She hadn't even fixed her makeup. Her eyes were swollen, her hair slightly tangled from the frantic running. But none of that mattered. She stormed into the executive floor and the assistants scrambled, startled. "Catherine," one whispered. "You can't just—" "I need to see Mr. Bradford, please," her voice cracked. Something in her tone must have scared them. Because 5 minutes later, she was ushered into Don Bradford's massive office. The man looked up from his desk. Silver hair sharp against his tanned skin. Expression hard but curious. "You look like hell," he said bluntly. "My mother, she needs surgery. I don't have the money." "Hi," her breath hitched. "I'm begging you, sir. I'll work overtime, weekends, anything. Just help me, please." For the first time, something softened in his eyes. "You're one of my best junior-level staff," he said quietly. "And I took pride in knowing you'd never come asking for favors." "I wouldn't," she whispered, tears sliding down her cheeks. "But she's all I have." The silence felt endless. Then he leaned back in his chair, studying her carefully. "What if," he began, fingers tapping lightly, "I offered you more than money? What if I could clear your debt fully and permanently?" "Anything," she said instantly. "You should hear the terms first." She froze. Her stomach tightened. "My son is coming home," he continued. "He's brilliant, stubborn, and emotionally blind. He does not believe in love, not after what he saw growing up. He believes marriage is just a financial arrangement. But I want more for him than the cold life he's convinced himself he deserves." Catherine said nothing. She didn't know much about Jerry Bradford, only that he was rumored to be cold, unreadable, and devastatingly attractive. A man who didn't smile because he didn't have to. Don Bradford steepled his fingers. "I want him married. Not for money, not for publicity, not for a business merger. Married for love." A humorless chuckle escaped him. "But he won't fall in love on his own." Her eyes widened slowly. "Sir, what are you asking? I need him to fall for someone, anyone." His gaze pierced her. "And I believe you're capable of making that happen." Catherine shook her head so fast she got dizzy. No, sir, I'm in a relationship." "Is that relationship good to you?" he asked sharply. Her throat tightened. She felt the bruise on her arm from 2 nights ago. She lowered her eyes. "You don't need to love my son," Don continued. "And I'm not asking you to make him love you. Just guide him into falling for someone. Help him open his heart. Once he's genuinely in love, your debt is cleared." Catherine covered her mouth with one hand. $70,000. Her mother's life. A chance to escape her abusive boyfriend. And she wasn't the one he'd fall in love with anyway. She nodded. "I'll do it." Jerry Bradford returned to Miami like a storm. Quiet, powerful, and impossible to ignore. His father threw a party in his honor at their oceanfront mansion, the kind of party where wealth dripped off the walls. Catherine stood at the entrance greeting guests, trying not to tremble. She was wearing the only good dress she owned, black, simple, fitted. She looked polished enough to stand next to billionaires, even if her heart was racing like a trapped bird. And then he walked in. Jerry Bradford, tall, broad shoulders, sharp jaw, sandy brown hair slightly tousled, eyes blue enough to make thoughts scatter. He scanned the room with a cool, unreadable expression. "So that's him," whispered one of the servers beside her. "He looks like trouble." Trouble didn't even cover it. Catherine had prepared herself for arrogance, for wealth-polished indifference. She had not prepared herself for this. The way he carried pain in his eyes like it was armor. Don Bradford approached, gripping Jerry's shoulder. "Before you get swallowed by everyone here, meet your new personal assistant." Jerry's gaze followed his father's hand, then landed on Catherine. Those blue eyes narrowed. "No," he said. Catherine blinked. "No," Don asked. "I don't want a female assistant." Jerry's tone was cold as steel. "I asked for a male." Catherine felt humiliation heat her chest, but she kept her voice steady. "I'm qualified, sir. Your father hired me because I can handle the workload." Jerry stepped closer, studying her with unnerving intensity. "I don't need someone who can't keep up." Her chin lifted, just barely. "Then give me 1 day. If I fail, you can replace me immediately." He wasn't expecting that. Something flickered in his eyes, respect mixed with annoyance. "You're confident." "I'm capable," she corrected softly. For a long moment he said nothing. Then he turned to his father. "Fine, 1 day." The next morning at Bradford Tower, Jerry tested her relentlessly. "Catherine, coffee." Not too sweet. She brought it exactly right. "Catherine, pull up the Paris investment report." She had already organized it alphabetically, chronologically, and by priority. "Catherine, schedule the board meeting for next week." "It's been on the calendar since last night," she said calmly. Jerry raised an eyebrow. He even tried catching her off guard. "Book me a flight. Done. Reschedule my call with London." "Already handled." He stared at her, expression unreadable. "You came prepared." She smiled. "It's my job." But it wasn't Julian-level competence that shook him. It was the softness she carried even when he was harsh, the calm strength, the way she didn't shrink, the way she didn't flirt, the way she didn't study him like a billionaire prize. That afternoon, he watched her help a new intern who was fumbling with the copier. She spoke gently, encouragingly, patient, and something in him stuttered. He wasn't used to kindness, not without a price. At the end of the day, as she packed her things, he surprised her by stopping at her desk. "You did well today," he said quietly. "Better than most people I've worked with." Her eyes lifted in surprise. "Thank you." His gaze lingered on her face longer than it should have. Something softened barely but real. "Keep this up," he murmured, "and I won't fire you." She laughed under her breath. "I'll try my best, sir." "Jerry," he corrected. She froze. He gave a faint, almost reluctant smile. "Call me Jerry." Her heart fluttered. In a way it definitely shouldn't, but she nodded. "Good night, Jerry." He turned away quickly, as if the sound of his own name in her voice unsettled him. And it did, because for the first time in a long time, something had slipped past his guard. Something warm, something dangerous, something he didn't believe he was capable of feeling. And it had started with her. The next 2 weeks felt like walking a tightrope, with the ocean roaring beneath. Catherine learned Jerry's rhythms, his moods, the way his silence spoke louder than most people's voices. He didn't smile much, didn't waste time on small talk, and avoided emotions like they were landmines. But he wasn't cruel, just guarded, built from steel and old wounds. He arrived early, left late, and worked with an intensity that left her breathless sometimes. She admired it, feared it, and respected it. She had a job to do, and that job wasn't just assisting him. It was getting him to fall in love. Not with her. Never with her. With someone else. Anyone else. Her mother's life depended on it. Her freedom depended on it. And she reminded herself of that every morning while tying her hair back and whispering, "You're here to do a job, nothing more." But Jerry made that job harder than she expected. Late Tuesday afternoon, she hesitated outside his glass office door, clutching the tablet. He was staring at his laptop, jaw sharp in concentration. "Jerry?" He glanced up. "Hmm?" She stepped inside. "You're overdue for a life outside this building." He raised a brow. Is that a professional observation or a personal one? Both, she said honestly. You need a break, and I found someone who might be a good match for you. His eyes snapped up fully at that. Match? His tone chilled. You're matchmaking me. She swallowed. I thought. Don't, his voice cut like a blade, don't arrange my life like I'm incapable of choosing a woman. That's not what I meant. I don't care what you meant, he said harshly. I don't want dates. I don't want distractions. I don't want a woman in my space. You act like feelings don't matter to you, she whispered. But that doesn't mean you should shut out the world. Stop. His voice was low, simmering. Don't try to fix me. She froze. He stood up slowly, coming around the desk until he was only a breath away. Close enough that she could see the faint green flecks in his blue eyes. Close enough that her pulse jumped in her throat. You work for me, he whispered. And I don't need a damn romantic advisor. Her heart thudded painfully. Jerry, I'm only trying to help. Help by doing your job, he said quietly. Nothing else. It felt like he had taken the air out of the room. She nodded quickly, forcing the sting in her eyes back. I understand. He stepped back, expression unreadable. Something flickered in his gaze. Guilt, restraint, something real, but he masked it immediately. Good, he said. Let's stick to work. But as she walked out, she saw his reflection in the glass. The way he closed his eyes. The way he exhaled hard. The way he regretted his tone. Not that he would ever admit that aloud. For the next few days he was different. Softer, not verbally. No, Jerry Bradford wasn't soft with words. But he held doors for her. He waited for her by the elevator. He asked if she had eaten. Small things. Meaningful things. Dangerous things. One morning, she arrived to find her desk holding a steaming cup of her favorite caramel latte. No note, no explanation. But Jerry passed her a moment later, eyes on his phone, voice casual. It looked like you needed caffeine yesterday. Her breath caught. Thank you. He didn't look back. It's just coffee. But it wasn't just coffee. Not from him. That small gesture lingered in her mind all day. A quiet warmth she couldn't explain. And when the invitation arrived for the Bradford Foundation Gala, her chest tightened with anticipation. Tonight was about proving herself in a world that had no room for mistakes. And about him. The Bradford Foundation Gala was one of the biggest nights of the year. Catherine was there assisting Jerry, dressed in a soft navy blue gown that hugged her curves subtly and flowed around her legs. She had curled her hair, added a touch of shimmer to her eyes. She looked radiant, Jerry noticed. He was talking to a board member when he glanced her way, and he faltered mid-sentence. Her beauty wasn't loud. It was gentle, soft, honest, like she wasn't trying to impress anyone. He hated himself for noticing. He hated how his chest tightened. He hated how human he felt when she smiled shyly at someone. He excused himself and walked toward her. You look... He stopped. She waited. He cleared his throat. You look professional. A laugh escaped her. That's the safest compliment you could think of. Absolutely. They shared a soft smile, awkward, warm, unexpected. But the moment was fragile. And moments like that never lasted long for Catherine. Because in the shadows of the ballroom, unseen, someone was watching her. Someone whose presence cracked the air like a fault line waiting to split. Her boyfriend. He wasn't invited. He couldn't get inside. But he knew where she worked tonight. And he waited. For hours, just outside. The night air was warm and thick with the scent of salt and jasmine. The gala had finally ended, staff buzzing around collecting last-minute equipment. Catherine exhaled a tired breath as she stepped out the employee exit, heels clicking softly on the pavement. She texted her ride, 5 minutes. She hugged her arms to her chest, rubbing the lingering tension from the long night. The crowd noise faded behind her. The ocean roared nearby. For a moment she let her guard down. She didn't know she was being watched. Catherine. Her body stiffened instantly. That voice. She turned slowly. Her boyfriend stepped out from behind the parked cars, tall, muscular, and unsteady, the faint smell of alcohol drifting from him. What are you doing here? She whispered, fear crawling up her spine. You didn't answer my calls all day, he slurred, stepping closer. Thought you could ignore me? She swallowed hard, taking a step back. Please don't do this. Not here, he laughed darkly. Oh, now you want to talk politely? I said not here, she repeated. Who you trying to impress? He snapped. That boss of yours. That rich boy you follow around every day. Her heart pounded. Stop. He grabbed her arm hard, tugging her toward him. She gasped. Let go of me. You think you can walk away whenever you want? He snarled, tightening his grip. You think I won't come find you? Catherine's eyes filled with tears. Her breath shook. Please, you're hurting me. And then a shadow moved behind her, a force, a presence. Jerry. He had walked out moments earlier, heading toward the valet when he saw her silhouette tense in fear, when he heard her cry out. Now he stood inches away from them, his voice deep and lethal. Take your hand off her. Her boyfriend turned, scoffing. And who the hell are... But Jerry wasn't listening. He stepped forward, grabbed the man's wrist, and peeled it off her arm with controlled, terrifying strength. Catherine stumbled back as her boyfriend yelped in pain. Jerry's jaw clenched. His voice dropped to a cold, dangerous whisper. You touch her again, and you'll answer to me. Oh yeah? The man spat. She's mine, not yours. Jerry's eyes darkened. She's not property, and she's not yours. The man lunged, wild, stupid, fueled by drunken anger. Jerry moved like instinct. He pinned the man against a car hood, twisting his arm behind his back with precision that left no doubt. He could do far more damage if he wanted to. The man groaned in agony. Listen to me carefully, Jerry hissed into his ear, the words sharp enough to cut steel. If you ever follow her again, if you ever raise a hand to her, if you ever come near her, you won't see the next warning. You'll see consequences. Catherine stood frozen, one hand pressed to her mouth, tears streaking down her cheeks as security rushed toward them. Jerry released the man with disgust. Hotel security grabbed him immediately, pulling him away, shouting warnings. Her boyfriend glared at her one last time. Jerry stepped into his line of sight. Don't even look at her. The man looked away. He was gone. Silence. Catherine trembled, wrapping her arms around herself. Jerry turned to her slowly, and everything in him softened at the sight of her shaking. Catherine, he said gently, stepping closer. Are you hurt? She tried to speak, but her voice cracked. I didn't want to cause a scene. You didn't, he said quietly, steady, grounding. He did. She swallowed, tears falling harder. I'm so sorry. He shook his head firmly. Don't apologize to me for someone else's cruelty. She looked up at him, eyes wide, vulnerable, glistening. Something shifted in his chest. Something he didn't want to name. Something he couldn't stop. He reached up instinctively to touch her cheek, but stopped an inch away. Fingers trembling. Too intimate, too dangerous, too honest. He lowered his hand. Don't go back to him, he whispered. I won't, she said, voice trembling. Catherine. Her name sounded like it meant too much when he said it, like he didn't even realize how tender he sounded. She took a shaky breath and stepped back, trying to gather herself, trying to hide how much he affected her. Thank you, she whispered, but we should get home. Long night. He watched her walk away, her shoulders curved inward, her heart exposed in every step, and he felt something break inside him. Something new, something terrifying, something he could no longer deny. When her Uber drove off, Jerry stood alone in the quiet Miami night, hands shaking, chest aching with a truth he didn't dare say out loud. Catherine George was no longer just his assistant. She was becoming the one thing he had spent his whole life avoiding, someone he couldn't afford to feel. Something changed after that night. For him, for her, he was more attentive. She was more cautious. Their silences grew heavier, filled with things neither dared to speak. One afternoon she handed him documents, their fingers brushing. Just a touch, but the way he inhaled sharply, the way she froze, it was dangerous. She felt it in her ribcage, in her spine, in the tremble of her breath at night, when she replayed every moment. And then one evening, everything came crashing down inside her. She was alone at home, sitting on her bed in silence. The lights were off. Moonlight streamed through the blinds, and her heart felt too full, too heavy, too terrified. She pressed a hand to her chest. This can't be happening. Not him. Not the man she was hired to help fall for someone else. Not the man she wasn't supposed to want. Not the man who didn't believe in love. But when she closed her eyes, she saw Jerry pulling her boyfriend off her. Jerry watching her when he thought she wasn't looking. Jerry softening whenever her name left someone's lips. Jerry fighting emotions like they were poison. She dropped her face into her hands and sobbed softly. I can't fall for him, she whispered. I can't, but her heart didn't listen. The next days were torture. She avoided his gaze. He noticed instantly. Catherine, he said one morning, are you okay? I'm fine, she said too quickly. Did something happen? No. You're not acting like yourself. I said I'm fine, she whispered. He stared at her, studying her like she was the only unsolved mystery he cared to understand. Catherine. His voice softened. Her chest twisted. She stepped back. He frowned. She escaped into the hallway, leaning against the wall, trying to catch her breath. Her heart wasn't obeying her anymore. It was choosing him. Every minute, every look, every heartbeat, and she hated herself for it. Because falling for Jerry Bradford wasn't just forbidden. It was dangerous emotionally, financially, morally. He wasn't hers. He would never be hers. And yet, he was the only man who had ever defended her like she mattered. The only man who made her feel seen, protected, wanted, even if he didn't realize he was showing it. She bit her lip hard, forcing the tears back. You weren't supposed to feel this way. You were only supposed to do a job. But some lines were never meant to be crossed, and she had already crossed the most dangerous one. Miami felt heavier that week, or maybe it was just Catherine. Every sunrise over the water looked softer, quieter, almost blurred. Like the city itself knew something inside her was unraveling. She had been avoiding mirrors. She didn't want to see the truth written in her eyes, the truth she tried desperately to bury. She was falling for him, for Jerry Bradford, the one man she was never supposed to feel anything for. It made her sick. It made her terrified. And worse, it made her heart feel alive in a way she hadn't felt in years. Don Bradford's office was cool, polished, and unforgiving. Catherine stood by the window, hands clasped tightly in front of her, trying to steady her breath. Don didn't look up immediately. He sensed the heaviness before she even spoke. Finally, when the silence became too heavy to ignore, he set his tablet aside. Catherine, he said softly, what's troubling you? Her throat tightened painfully. I can't continue, she whispered. Don's brow rose. Continue with the job. Yes, she breathed. I want to resign. Don studied her carefully. Why? Catherine swallowed hard, fighting tears she refused to let fall. This arrangement, it's become too much. It's affecting my work, my mind, my emotions. Her voice cracked at the last word. I can't do it anymore, she said quietly. I know why I was hired. I know my job. But I can't keep going like this. Don didn't look surprised. If anything, he looked sad. The sadness of a man who had lived long enough to recognize love, long before it was spoken aloud. Tell me, Catherine, Don said gently. Is it because of my son? She froze. Her silence said more than any confession could. Don sighed, leaning back slowly. You've fallen for him. Catherine blinked hard and looked away, staring at the Miami skyline until it blurred. I wasn't supposed to, she whispered. I didn't mean to. I didn't even realize it until it was too late. A tear slipped down her cheek. I'm in a difficult place in my personal life. I'm trying to survive an abusive relationship. I'm trying to pay off my mother's hospital debt. The last thing I ever meant to do was feel anything for him. Don's voice softened. You're not wrong for feeling, Catherine. I am, she whispered, because he'll never feel anything for me. He doesn't let anyone close. He doesn't even let me see the real him, and I'm fooling myself thinking I matter. Don's eyes softened in understanding, but he didn't argue her point. She wiped her cheek quickly. I'll repay everything, no matter how many years it takes, but you have to let me go. Don looked at her like a father watching a daughter walk into a storm. Catherine, sometimes the people who are the hardest to love are the ones who need it the most. I know, she whispered, her voice breaking, but I can't stay, because every day I remain in that office, I love him a little more, and it's destroying me. Don stood, walked closer and rested a hand on her shoulder. If you walk away, he said softly, you're choosing safety. I respect that. But don't lie to yourself. You're not walking away because you don't love him. He paused. You're walking away because you do. Her chest twisted sharply. I'm sorry, she whispered, but my mind is made up. 2 days later, Jerry stood in Don's office, holding the printed copy of the contract Catherine had signed. His jaw was clenched so tightly he could barely breathe. You did what? Jerry's voice was steel. Don stayed calm. She needed help. You needed direction. I simply created an opportunity. You hired her to get me to fall in love, Jerry snapped, blue eyes flashing with anger and betrayal. No, Don corrected. I hired her to show you that love can exist. Jerry barked a humorless laugh. Love? You know exactly how I feel about that. You've known since I was a kid. You knew what Mum did. That's exactly why I did it, Don said firmly. You built a wall so high you forgot there's a world outside it. Jerry's fists clenched. You used her. You used me. Don looked him dead in the eye. She felt guilty every day, and now she's quitting, because her conscience won't allow her to deceive you. Jerry froze. Quitting, he repeated, voice dropping to a whisper. Don nodded. She resigned this morning. Jerry felt something sharp twist inside him, something he didn't want to name. Let her go, Don added quietly, unless she means more to you than you're ready to admit. Her desk was already empty when Jerry reached the office floor. Her laptop gone, her pen holder missing, her favorite purple mug vanished. Just the ghost of her perfume lingering in the air. He stood in the middle of the space, chest pounding, eyes scanning the room like he could force her presence back into existence. Where is she? Jerry demanded, voice low. The receptionist blinked nervously. She left early, said today was her last day. His heart dropped. Last day. It echoed in his skull. He didn't know why it hurt. Didn't know why he suddenly felt breathless. Didn't understand why the thought of her not being here tomorrow made his stomach twist violently. The receptionist cleared her throat. She left a note for you, sir. Jerry snatched it. Kay and her looping handwriting. Thank you for everything. I'm grateful for my time here. Catherine. He read it 3 times, simple, polite, distant, cold, not even a goodbye. His jaw tightened. Good, she's gone. That's what he wanted. He didn't need her. He didn't need anyone. But the truth slashed through him mercilessly. He missed her already. Missed her voice. Missed the way she kept his schedule together. Missed how her presence softened the room. He crushed the note in his fist. Why does this hurt? He whispered to himself, but no answer came. For the first time in his adult life, Jerry Bradford lost control of his routine. He arrived late to the office. Forgot 2 meetings. Snapped at employees who hadn't done anything wrong. Stared at his phone longer than he'd admit, waiting for a call, a message, a sign she cared enough to reach out. But nothing came. His nights were worse. He lay awake staring at the ceiling, replaying memories he had no business holding on to. The way she tucked her hair behind her ear when she was nervous, the way she smiled at the interns, the quiet confidence she carried even on her worst days. Every memory hurt. Every silence burned. This is stupid, he muttered, pacing his living room. I don't love her. I don't. But the ache in his chest disagreed. The emptiness in his apartment disagreed. The echoing quiet of his days disagreed. He punched the back of the couch in frustration, breath shuddering. Why can't I stop thinking about her? Love, a word he despised, was beginning to break through the cracks he'd spent years sealing shut. He didn't realize he was whispering her name into the dark until the sound startled him. Catherine. Across town, Catherine curled on her couch, knees to her chest, tears staining her pillow. She didn't hear his whisper, but she felt it, the same strange pulling ache. Every hour she had worked by his side, every time he looked at her with those conflicted blue eyes, she fell deeper. But she would never admit it, never act on it, never break him. She wasn't the woman he was meant to love. And yet he was the man her heart chose. She wiped her cheek and whispered into the quiet, I'll survive this. I have to, but her voice trembled, because the truth was cruel and simple. She didn't want to survive it. She wanted him. Jerry stood by his window that night, staring at the cityscape, chest heavy. One truth hovered in the air, refusing to be swallowed. He didn't just miss Catherine. He needed her, wanted her. Loved, no, he choked on the word. But the heart doesn't listen. Jerry didn't recognize himself anymore. 3 days, 3 long, sleepless, suffocating days since Catherine walked out of his life. 3 days since her soft voice stopped filling his mornings, since her presence stopped grounding the chaos in him. 3 days of pacing his penthouse with an anger he couldn't name, a sadness he refused to face, a longing that terrified him. He kept telling himself what he'd sworn since childhood. Love is a transaction, nothing more. But every corner of his apartment pulsed with her absence. Her empty desk outside his office, her quiet laughter in the hallway, her warm floral scent that clung to the elevator long after she used it, and worst of all, her voice in his head calling him Jerry, soft and caring, like his name meant something more than the walls he'd built. He tried to bury himself in work. He tried to forget. He tried to pretend. But on the third night, when he found himself standing at his window overlooking Miami, hands trembling, heart racing, he whispered something he never imagined would pass his lips. God, I miss her. The realization cracked him open. It wasn't just missing her. It was need. It was longing. It was love, deep, fierce. Painful love for a woman he never planned to let into his heart. A woman who slipped past all his defenses and planted warmth in places he thought were dead. He grabbed his car keys. Tonight he wasn't letting her stay gone. The rain came out of nowhere, thick. Warm Miami rain sweeping over the city like someone had turned the sky inside out. Jerry drove through it, headlights cutting through sheets of water, the same storm churning in his chest. He didn't know exactly where she lived, but he knew one thing. Catherine always walked on the shoreline when life overwhelmed her. He'd noticed it in the way she looked out the office window on stressful days, the way she talked about the ocean with reverence. If she needed peace, she'd go where she felt free. He parked near South Point Beach, heart pounding, rain soaking him instantly as he ran across the sand. The waves roared like they knew his secret. And then he saw her, standing alone at the water's edge, arms wrapped around herself, rain mixing with tears on her face. Her curls were drenched, her dress clinging to her, her figure trembling against the wind. His breath caught. Catherine, she turned, startled, her eyes wide, then softening, then breaking. Jerry, her voice cracked. What are you doing here? He walked toward her like a man coming home after years in the dark. I came to find you. She swallowed hard, stepping back as if she needed distance to breathe. You shouldn't be here. I should have been here days ago, he said, rain dripping from his hair, his clothes plastered to his skin. I should have stopped you from leaving. You couldn't, she whispered. You weren't supposed to. His jaw clenched. I decide what I'm supposed to feel. She shook her head violently, the emotion spilling out of her chest. No, Jerry. You don't love me. You don't even believe in love. I was never part of the plan. I was never supposed to. To what, he demanded. To matter to me, because you do. Her lips parted, her heart thundering. That wasn't the job, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to be the woman you... Don't say it, he breathed, voice shaking. Catherine's breath hitched. Jerry, you don't even want love. Lightning flashed behind them, illuminating everything. His fear, her breaking heart, the truth suspended between them. He took one step closer. Maybe I didn't want love, he said, voice low, raw, trembling, but I wanted you. God, I wanted you. Her eyes squeezed shut like the words were too much. I told myself it was nothing, he whispered. That the way I looked for you in every room didn't mean anything. That the way my day didn't start until you smiled at me wasn't real. That the jealousy I felt when I saw that man hurt you wasn't love. She exhaled shakily, tears mixing with rain. It became real, he said softly. Whether I wanted it to or not. Her heart throbbed so painfully she had to clutch her chest. I wasn't supposed to fall for you, she whispered. I wasn't supposed to be anywhere near your heart. Your father, he wanted you to marry someone, anyone, and I told myself it wouldn't be me. It could never be me. Catherine. Because you don't choose love, she said, voice cracking. You run from it. You shut it out. And I, she swallowed hard, tears spilling freely. I loved you anyway. Jerry closed the distance between them, gently cupping her face in both hands. She tried to look away, but he wouldn't let her, not this time. Not when he'd spent 3 days drowning in everything he'd never said. I'm sorry, he whispered, for making you feel like you weren't enough, for making you believe I couldn't love you, for letting you walk away. Her body shook. Jerry. He rested his forehead against hers. Love terrifies me, he admitted. It reminds me of everything I lost, everything I watched my father lose. His voice wavered. But losing you? That's worse. A sob escaped her. Let me choose you, he breathed. Let me try. Let me love you the way I should have from the beginning. The moment she whispered, Jerry, I still love you, he pulled her into him, a desperate, aching, soul-deep kiss like he'd been waiting a lifetime for her. Rain poured around them. Waves crashed. His arms held her like letting go wasn't an option. Her fingers curled into his soaked shirt, as if she needed him to live. Everything that had been denied burst open between them. He kissed her forehead, her cheeks, the corner of her mouth, soft, reverent trembling. You're my heart, he whispered. You always were. 6 months had softened every rough edge between them. They argued sometimes. They laughed more often, and somehow, without either of them planning it, their lives blended into a quiet rhythm that felt like breathing. That night, Catherine was in her apartment, cooking dinner the way she always did, when she knew he'd had a long day. The kitchen smelled like garlic and rosemary, and her playlist hummed softly in the background. She wore one of his shirts, the crisp white one he'd forgotten weeks ago. It hung loose on her frame, sleeves rolled up, collar slightly slipping off her shoulder. Jerry stopped in the doorway watching her. He didn't speak. He just looked at the woman who didn't try to impress him, who didn't want anything from him, who didn't fear his walls, who simply loved him enough to stay. Something inside him settled. He walked up behind her, slipping his arms around her waist. She startled lightly, then relaxed against him with a soft smile. "You're home early," she murmured. "Couldn't focus," he said, his voice low against her neck. "I kept thinking about you." She turned in his arms, eyebrows raised. "About me? Why?" He brushed a curl from her cheek. "Catherine, these last months have been the most peaceful I've ever had. You made something in my life make sense for the first time." Her expression softened, but she said nothing. She just touched his jaw gently, waiting. Jerry swallowed hard. "I used to think love wasn't real, that it was a transaction, a risk, a lie." He shook his head slowly. "But then you walked into my life and ruined every belief I built to protect myself." Her breath hitched, but he kept going. "I didn't want to rush anything. I wanted to ask you this when my heart wasn't running from it." His voice gentled. "And tonight I'm not running." He reached into his pocket, his fingers slightly trembling. "Not from fear, from certainty. Catherine George," he whispered, opening the velvet box. "I want a life with you. A steady one. A loud one. A messy one. Whatever it is, I want it with you." Her eyes filled instantly. "Marry me." For a moment she just stared at him, lips trembling, tears slipping down one by one. Then she laughed, a breathless, emotional laugh, and nodded. "Yes," she whispered. "Jerry, yes." He pulled her into his arms, holding her like she was the only truth in his world. And in that quiet, warm kitchen, with the food beginning to burn on the stove, he kissed her with the certainty of a man who finally understood what love was supposed to feel like. The wedding was simple, intimate, beautiful, under a white arch on a secluded patch of Miami shoreline, with soft music in the background and the waves standing witness. Jerry and Catherine became husband and wife. She walked toward him barefoot in a flowing cream dress that caught the wind, her curls soft around her shoulders. He stood waiting, blue eyes warm, softer than anyone had ever seen, his heart open for the first time in his life. When she reached him, he whispered, "You look like the woman I prayed I'd find, even when I didn't believe it possible." She touched his cheek. "And you look like the man I always knew was underneath all that armor." He choked out a soft laugh. When he lifted her veil, his hands trembled. When she said, "I do," he closed his eyes like he had been given a new life. And when he kissed her as his wife, it was slow, deep, and filled with every promise he never knew he could make. Later that night, barefoot in their new home overlooking Miami, Jerry held her from behind, swaying slowly to the quiet music playing in the background. "Thank you," he whispered into her neck. "For what?" she breathed. "For proving that love is real." He turned her around and cupped her face gently. "And for choosing me, even when I didn't know how to choose you." She smiled softly, eyes filled with warmth. "You were worth the wait." He kissed her slow and tender, his forehead resting against hers. And for the first time in his life, Jerry Bradford felt whole. Love didn't break him, it rebuilt him. 2 years passed, soft and steady, shaping their love into something deeper, stronger, unshakable. Their home in Miami felt different now, warmer, fuller, alive. Tonight it was filled with quiet. Jerry stood in the doorway of the nursery, leaning one shoulder against the frame, watching Catherine cradling their newborn son. The tiny boy slept against her chest, breathing in small, soft puffs, his little hand curled around her finger. Catherine looked up, exhausted but radiant, her smile gentle and full of awe. Jerry moved closer, heart swelling in a way he never imagined a man like him could feel. He brushed his fingers across his son's small head, then cupped Catherine's cheek tenderly. "You've given me more than I ever knew how to ask for," he murmured, "a home, a family, a reason to believe in something real." Her eyes softened. "You gave me the same." He leaned down and kissed her, slow, grateful, full of the love he spent years denying existed. Their son shifted between them, letting out a tiny breath, and Jerry laughed quietly, the sound warm and disbelieving. "Our boy," he whispered, voice thick. "Catherine, he's ours." She rested her head against his shoulder. "Welcome to the world, baby," she murmured to the sleeping child, and Jerry wrapped his arms around them both. His wife, his son, his life, holding the family he once thought he'd never have, never deserve, never believe in. But love had found him anyway, and this time he held on. And that brings us to the conclusion of their journey. If this story touched your heart, please like, comment, and subscribe for more emotional love stories. Share it with someone who believes in true love, and hit the bell so you never miss a tale that moves your soul. Until next time, keep believing in love.